So, have you ever heard the saying, beware the Ides of March? You ever hear that one? That's next month. Beware the Ides of March. It's a warning that misfortune and bad luck usually come around that time of year. I don't know why, but it seems to. But beware the Ides of March. You know where that comes from? Somebody, I think somebody said it. It's a phrase from a Shakespeare play, Beware the Ides of March, which tells the story of the betrayal and assassination of one of the world's most notorious people, Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar. Now, I know some of you just heard the term Caesar and are automatically thinking about romaine lettuce and croutons and Caesar dressings with some grilled chicken thrown in, but not that Caesar, okay? Actually, I didn't know this, but the Caesar salad was actually named for an Italian immigrant. He had a restaurant in Tijuana, Mexico. That's where the Caesar salad started, believe it or not. So there you go, trivia for today. But Julius Caesar, he was a brilliant military leader. He was a master politician. He won many battles. He expanded the Roman Empire and was very, very popular amongst the people. Many people admired Julius Caesar, but there were also a group that really feared Julius Caesar. Some in the Roman Senate became so fearful of him because of his overwhelming popularity and charisma and charm that they convinced themselves the only way to save the Roman Senate and the Republic of Rome was to get rid of Caesar. And the Shakespeare play, if you've ever read it, or at least read the Sparks Notes version of the Shakespeare play, that's what I did in high school, don't tell anybody. But the Shakespeare play tells the story on March 15th, beware the Ides of March, on March 15th, 44 BC, Caesar walks into the Senate chamber, unaware of what was about to happen. But a group of senators surround him and each stab him. They were friends, and they were colleagues, and they were men Caesar trusted. And one of these men was Brutus. Brutus was one of Caesar's closest friends. He had mentored Brutus. There was mutual respect there. He believed in Brutus. So in Shakespeare's telling of the story, as he's being betrayed, Caesar looks at Brutus and says, good. English scholars here, yes. Et tu, Brute, which means even you, Brutus. Even you, Brutus. And that phrase has lived on, et tu, Brute, not necessarily because of the history behind it, but because that phrase embodies something that we all understand, that we all face in life and will likely experience, and that thing is betrayal. Even you, fill in the blank, even you. So go ahead and turn your Bibles to John chapter 13. This is part 3 of our series, Different on Purpose. And the message for today is called Et tu, Brute. Et tu, Brute. So let's look at this passage from John chapter 13, starting in verse 1. Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garments and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with a towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, do you wash my feet? Jesus answered him, what I am doing to you, you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand. Peter said to him, you shall never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, if I do not wash you, you have no share with me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus said to him, the one who has bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you. For he knew who was to betray him. That was why he said, not all of you are clean. So foot washing was actually a common element of hospitality in Jesus' day. We take people's coats, they would wash their feet, people's feet. So obviously they lived in a dusty area and everyone wore sandals. So when you would go to someone's home, usually the lowliest member of the household, a servant or a slave if you would have one, but usually the lowliest member of the household would typically wash the guest's feet. So when Jesus gets a towel and starts washing the disciples' feet, Peter quickly objects. He's like, I can't have this. Peter says, no, you shall never wash my feet. Now notice that just before Peter objects to what Jesus is doing, Jesus said in verse 7, he said, what I am doing you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand. So Jesus hadn't yet died on the cross, right? In this moment. He was about to, but hadn't yet died on the cross. So Jesus is saying that the disciples didn't yet understand the fullness of what Jesus washing their feet meant. That's what he was saying. Jesus washing their feet, it was a symbol. It was foreshadowing of the sacrificial love he was about to show them on the cross. So that's why when Peter says, well, you shall never wash my feet, Jesus responds, well, Peter, if I don't wash you, in other words, if you don't accept what I'm about to do on the cross for you, you have no share with me. We all have to accept the sacrificial love that Jesus displayed on the cross. So he's saying, if you don't accept that, in other words, if you don't let me wash your feet, well, you have no share in me. Well, here's Peter. He can't have any of that. So he responds, oh, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Wash me all over, Jesus. Peter wants Jesus to know that whatever is required of him, whatever he must do, he's all in. He's completely all in, devoted to Jesus. Jesus, wash me all over. You wash their feet, but if that's what it takes, then wash me all over. I'm all in. Okay, well, later in John chapter 13, this knucklehead Peter, I mean, he is a knucklehead, he just talks a lot, but we love him anyway. But Peter makes sure Jesus knows again just how devoted he is to Jesus. Look, verse 36, Simon Peter said to him, Lord, where are you going? Jesus answered him, where I am going, you cannot follow me, but you will follow afterward. Peter said to him, Lord, why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you. Jesus answered, will you lay down your life for me? Truly, truly, I say to you, the rooster will not crow till you have denied me 3 times. See, Peter was the guy that was never going to let Jesus down. He was going to stand strong with him no matter what. He would be the friend that would stick. Or not. Or not. Whenever we love deeply, invest in a relationship, get close to others, there's always the possibility of disappointment, letdown, even betrayal. Maybe you've experienced that firsthand. I know I have. And when that happens, you experience a gamut of emotions. You experience anger, hurt, confusion, shock, grief, regret. You second guess what you said and did. You wonder if you should have seen it coming. You wonder if any of it was real. You wonder if it's really just you. You work through all that stuff. And the Psalms are really a great reminder to us all that wrestling with these emotions, it's a healthy thing to do. The Psalms don't shy away from human emotion and processing and asking questions. Look what the author of Psalm 55 writes. I mean, he's just working through it and processing it emotionally. Look what he says. It is not an enemy who taunts me. I could bear that. It is not my foes who so arrogantly insult me. I could have hidden from them. Instead, it is you, my equal, my companion and close friend. What good fellowship we once enjoyed as we walked together to the house of God. Et tu, Brute. It's a hurtful and painful thing to be betrayed, hurt, disappointed by those closest to you. And let's be honest, it takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of courage to be able to trust anybody again after you've been hurt like that. A few years ago, I was really struggling with this myself, and a close friend and mentor of mine, he gave me some advice. I still remember it. He said, you're gonna wanna withdraw. You're gonna wanna shut down, but don't stop loving people. Don't stop trusting people. You can't live your life like that. He was right. But he knew that after facing the pangs of betrayal and hurt and disappointment, the de facto human reaction is to withdraw and pull back, to stop opening up to avoid getting hurt, to not trust anybody ever again. But before you go there, you've got to go back to Jesus. Jesus, knowing perfectly well the fickle allegiance of his disciples, he loved them anyway. He loved them anyway. Even when he knew they would betray him, he kneels down, washes their feet, and chooses to love them in spite of it. I mean, Jesus' love for these disciples and for us is beyond human reasoning. It really is. It doesn't make sense. But this is the love that we are called to show one another. Look what Jesus says after this in verse 12. When he had washed their feet and put his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If then your teacher and Lord have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do just as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. So we can get behind living this out and doing this, I think, when it comes to serving one another. You know, this passage of washing others' feet is typically used in context of service, right? And that's a very true and right application of this passage. I mean, many of you are about to wash feet at Night to Shine. That's why we do this. We humble ourselves. We serve our community in this way to put on this event. And that is just one beautiful, practical way to live out what Jesus is telling us here, how we should wash one another's feet, how no one is greater, how the ground is truly level. We are to serve others. It's all about humble servitude, this passage. But the question I want to ask today is, what does this passage mean, though? Or what does it look like in the context of betrayal? See, Jesus washed the disciples' feet knowing they were going to betray him. That's the reality. And then he says, you too should wash one another's feet. So what does that look like in the context of betrayal? Does this mean that we just keep allowing anyone to treat us however they want? Does this mean we're required to be close with people who keep abusing us? Just suck it up? Keep putting yourself out there because Jesus said to? Well, the Bible has some other things to say about that. Look at Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. This verse is a great reminder that God cares about your well-being. You hear me? God cares about your well-being too. Loving others with the love of Jesus does not mean tolerating toxic relationships. It does not mean allowing yourself to be abused. It does not require you to keep putting yourself in a situation just to be hurt and hurt and hurt again and again and again. Guarding your heart and setting boundaries and saying no doesn't mean that you're being unloving. Look at what Paul wrote to the Thessalonians. If anyone does not obey what we say in this letter, take note of that person and have nothing to do with him, that he may be ashamed. Do not regard him as an enemy, but warn him as a brother. Look what he writes in Romans. I appeal to you, brothers, to watch out for those who cause divisions and create obstacles contrary to the doctrine that you have been taught. Avoid them. Avoid them. So here's the question still though, right? I mean, in these kinds of situations here, what does loving one another look like? What does it look like? How can we love one another as Jesus calls us to, while still guarding our hearts and knowing that God cares about our well-being? What do we do? Listen to me. The answer to all of it is forgiveness. Forgiveness. The Greek meaning behind the word forgiveness means to release or to hurl away. See, when we choose to forgive someone, we're saying that even though they don't deserve it, I'm choosing to release them. I'm choosing to forgive them of what they did and how they hurt me and how they betrayed me. Now, where there is forgiveness, there may be, prayerfully be, fellowship with them again, maybe. But forgiveness doesn't automatically mean fellowship. It doesn't mean that everything's going to go back to the way it was. You can truly forgive someone while guarding your heart and choosing not to restore a close relationship with them. But you can still forgive them. Author Lewis Smedes wrote this. This is so good. The first and often the only person to be healed by forgiveness is the person who does the forgiveness. Then listen to this. When we genuinely forgive, we set a prisoner free. That's what forgiveness means. When we genuinely forgive, we set a prisoner free, and then discover that the prisoner we set free was us. Isn't that good? Man. When we genuinely forgive, we set a prisoner free, and then discover that the prisoner we set free was us. In Matthew 18, Peter asked Jesus a question. He says, how often will my brother sin against me and I forgive him? As many as 7 times? Jesus tells him not 7 times, but 70 times 7. That's a lot, okay? Jesus is making a point. You're just supposed to keep forgiving. Keep forgiving. Then he tells this parable. Look at this. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. And since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold with his wife and children and all he had, and payment to be made. So the servant fell on his knees, imploring him, "Have patience with me, and I will pay you everything." And out of pity for him, the master of that servant released him and forgave him the debt. But when that same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, and seizing him, he began to choke him, saying, "Pay what you owe." So his fellow servant fell down and pleaded with him, "Have patience with me, and I will pay you." He refused and went and put him in prison until he should pay the debt. When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed, and they went and reported to their master all that had taken place. Then his master summoned him and said to him, "You wicked servant, I forgave all that debt because you pleaded with me, and should not you have mercy on your fellow servant as I had mercy on you?" And in anger, his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all his debt. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. See, when Jesus tells Peter to forgive 70 times 7, he's not just setting this high bar for forgiveness. Think about this too. He's also being honest about what life with people will be like. If Peter is gonna need to forgive that many times, it means that Peter is gonna be hurt that many times. It doesn't stop. It means that he will experience disappointment, hurt, and betrayal again and again and again and again. And by telling this parable, Jesus is giving the answer and what our response must be to the disappointment, hurt, and betrayal we receive from others. No, it's not keep allowing people to treat you poorly, but our response to the disappointment, hurt, and betrayal that we'll face many, many times in life must be forgiveness. We must forgive one another. It's as simple as that. We must forgive. There may not be fellowship again, depending on the circumstance. There's a lot of scenarios. There's a lot of variables. There may not able to be fellowship again, but there must be forgiveness. There must be forgiveness. Why? C.S. Lewis put it best. Listen to what he said. To be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable, because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you. To be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you. I mean, it's certainly humbling, right, to think of Jesus, God incarnate, kneeling down to wash feet. But the most humbling thing of all in this story is what John wrote in verse 1. Did you catch it? Let's go back and look at it. Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Man. He loved them to the end before they betrayed him. You know that? He loved them to the end before they denied him. He loved them to the end before they would all scatter like cowards. He loved them to the end before they proved unfaithful. He loved them to the end before they disappointed him. He loved them to the end before they abandoned him in his darkest hour. And he loved them to the end before they left him to suffer alone. He loved them to the end all the way up a hill called Calvary. He loved them to the very end. And greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. See, the night that Jesus washed the disciples' feet, he did something else to show that his love was really to the end. He gave us a picture. In church circles, we call it a sacrament that we still observe today, that we're about to observe this morning. And it's interesting that when Paul in the New Testament writes and recounts what communion is and what it is all about, notice the word that he chooses. For I received from the Lord what I also delivered to you, that the Lord Jesus, on the night when he was what? Betrayed. On the night when he was betrayed, he took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it, said, "This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way also, he took the cup after supper, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For often as you eat this bread and drink the cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." Paul didn't choose to write on the night before he died, choose to write on the night that Jesus instituted the sacrament of communion. Paul wrote, on the night he was what? Betrayed. He took the bread and he broke it and he passed it to all of his disciples and said, "This is my body broken for you, for you." Then after supper, he took the cup, said, "This cup is the blood of the new covenant given to you. Often as you drink it, do this in remembrance of me." Man. This is Paul's reminder on the night he was betrayed. It's Paul's reminder that communion wasn't given on a night of loyalty and faithfulness and courage and steadfastness. It was given on a night of betrayal. When Jesus was betrayed. Yet, do you see the beauty in this? Yet Jesus he still did it. He still broke the bread. He still drank the cup and passed it to all of his disciples. These guys were about to flee for the hills and he knew it. But he still offered his own body and blood for them. For us, Barbara Brown Taylor says this: when Jesus holds up the cup and offers what is in it as the fluid of forgiveness, he's not talking to people with a short list of minor sins. He's talking to people who will turn him in, who will scatter to the four winds at the first sign of trouble, and who will swear they never knew him. He is talking to people who should have been his best friends on earth, who turn out not to have a loyal bone in their bodies. And he is forgiving them ahead of time, as surely as if he had said, "I know who you are. I know you will not be innocent of the blood of this cup, but I will not let that come between us. Let my life become your life through the blood of this covenant." This is a reminder to all of you here today that he loves you to the end. He loves you to the end, no matter what. And in this life, you're going to be hurt and you're going to be betrayed by other people. And I don't know, there's so many different situations and circumstances, but hopefully this whole thing puts some of that into perspective. I don't know what to tell you what to do, but I do know what Jesus did for you. And I do know that people will hurt you and betray you and flee for the hills, but Jesus never will. That I can tell you today. He is the friend who always sticks closer than a brother. Always. because he was betrayed by his own friends, and yet he never blinked. He never wavered. Instead, he offers us his very life. And that's what communion is really all about. It's a reminder that nothing will ever come between you and Jesus. What a friend. What a friend we have in Jesus. He is the one who sticks closer. So if you're here today and you recognize your need for Jesus, communion is for you. That's who it's for. For all who recognize their need of a Savior, their need for his grace, who see that we are among the ones who betrayed him. We are the ones who called out among the crowd, crucify him. We are the ones who turned our back on him. And even more so, we actually turn our back on him every single day. That's the truth. And yet he never wavers. He never blinks. And he says, none of that can come between me and you. I love you to the very end. To the very end.